Hello, I'm Jansson with Godsib Birth Support. Choosing the name for your baby. Why is this so hard? If you found this video, it's probably because you are struggling with choosing a beautiful name for your baby, and I am here to help you with a thoughtful, spiritual approach to this topic. First of all, I'd like to commiserate with you. Choosing the name for your baby just is hard. I think there are three reasons I can identify for this. First of all, it's a deeply personal issue. I remember when we first shared the name that we had chosen for our three babies with the outside world, it felt like we were exposing ourselves, like we were sharing a bit of our soul. And that is a vulnerable thing. Somehow, when you choose a name, you are expressing to the world your hopes and your desires for this child whom you have born. Second of all, choosing a name for your baby is has a big effect on the child's life and on who they become in their later life. So, for example, there's a whole field of research surrounding this topic. Aptonyms are the subject of this field, and they look at how a person's name is somehow correlated with their later profession that they choose. So you might have an Emily Shear who becomes a hairstylist. You might have a Harold Cutter who becomes a butcher. So the name that we choose for our child has a big effect on how their life pans out. Finally, choosing a name for our child is also a spiritual undertaking. This was one of the first tasks that Adam and Eve were given by God in the garden, was to name the other creatures who lived with them. And they were doing that as an extension of his creative work. So they were actually participating in the creation through the naming. So choosing a name is a spiritual calling, so it can feel quite weighty, but that's my take on it. So no wonder it's so hard. What tips do I have for you? Well, I'd like to encourage you to consider the meaning of the names that you're thinking about. I had a client recently who named her son Jackson. And I know this is a popular name at the moment. I've seen on various different e-groups, Facebook groups, deliberations about names and whether this name should be spelled Jackson or Jaxon. And the thing I admired about this family was that their child's name was Jackson because the father's was named Jack. And So the meaning of the name is true. That child is the son of Jack. And I think when we name children after cities, or when we name a girl something ending in son, that is that causes cognitive dissonance in me, because I think that the meanings of words are really important. So I would encourage you to consider a name whose meaning is appropriate for you or your child or your family. Second of all, I'd like to encourage you to consider the precedent that name has in your life. This could be you were considering the name Danielle, and you once knew a Danielle. That's obviously going to be formative in what springs to mind when you hear that name. That person, if that's the only Danielle you've ever known, is going to be the one who springs to mind. Another example would be if you have a history of Davids in your family, you may choose to bring that thread down a generation for family continuity. But another way we can bring this continuity into our children's lives is through considering saints' names. So in the Orthodox Church, we have a number of different saints who are commemorated every single day of the year. And Orthodox families, when they're considering names for their children, often go to the church calendar and get inspiration from the saints' names that are surrounding the time of that child's birth. So then the feast of that saint is celebrated around the same time as the birthday of the child. And that saint, you can ask that saint to pray for your child, and you can encourage your child to have a special relationship with that holy person who followed Christ. So that's the second tip. And my last tip for you is to let the baby decide. So a wait and see approach. You may feel that you're in a rush to name your baby. Some people even name their baby before the baby's born. But I know from my experience that I didn't know what my children should be called until I saw them. For example, my son Thomas, we had a short list. I think it was Samuel, Thomas or Benjamin. And when he was born, within 2 minutes, I knew this was not Samuel and this was not Benjamin. So he ruled out those other options for me. So just be patient, wait and see, and let your baby decide. Thanks for watching. Hope this has been a great help to you. Check out my website at www.godsib.net. That's godsib.net.